Good morning. Good morning and welcome to our sutta study here at Empty Cloud Buddhist Monastery. It's nice to see a number of us have already come into the live chat. Good morning, Gita and Jens and Peter A. and Sarah and Michael. Or maybe you prefer Buddha Ruchi. I'm not sure what you like and when you're being addressed on the fly. I am Santi Bhikkhu. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. We'll be looking together at the Sallekha Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 8. Feel free to take a moment to find that. If you don't have it already up and running, we sent you the link at Sutta Central. Just like yesterday, I'm going to be working mainly from the Bhikkhu Bodhi version in the Wisdom Publications, Majjhima Nikaya, but we'll be also having a few glances at interesting translation choices of Ajahn Sujato at Sutta Central. Okay, let's get started. We'll start with the homage to the Triple Gem. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, diving right in, we'll look at the sutta starting from the Bhikkhu Bodhi version. And I think I'll just read it paragraph by paragraph and make comments on the entire introduction, which is quite important for contextualizing the body of the sutta to follow. So we'll spend quite a bit of time on the first two sections of the sutta. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then when it was evening, the Venerable Mahachunda rose from meditation and went to the Blessed One. So this is Mahachunda, who shows up in several suttas. He's an elder, Maha, an accomplished bhikkhu. After paying homage to the Blessed One, he sat down at one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, this is really a key paragraph, so we want to really dig into this one. Venerable Sir, various views arise in the world associated either with doctrines of a self or with doctrines about the world. Now, does the abandoning and relinquishing of those views come about in a bhikkhu who is attending only to the beginning? Let's take this slowly. Various views arise in the world associated either with doctrines of a self or with doctrines about the world. So, Bhikkhu Bodhi chooses the word various. I think that Bhante Sujato chooses the word simply many. I did look this word up in the Pali Dictionary. It has a number of meanings, including countless. So let's keep that in mind, along with various and many. Bhikkhu Bodhi points us towards the commentarial tradition of thinking about what views associated with doctrines of the self and views associated with doctrines about the world are. You may have come across in other sutta a kind of traditional list of views about the self and views about the world. And these are certainly indicated and certainly make sense here. These are kind of speculative philosophical views, like the self has a soul which is eternal, or the self has no soul, and at death, the body is completely destroyed and there's nothing. Those are kind of the extremes of the speculative views about the self. And you can plug in those same words to doctrines about the world or the universe, the cosmos, as Ajahn Sujato translates it, is infinite and eternal and has always been and will always be. Or the view that the cosmos is subject to utter destruction, is going to burn out, fade away, and be utterly gone. Those are speculative, and again, those are two extreme views of how things are. But those views are speculative in that they are beyond the reach of our normal unenlightened consciousness. In order to have a strong feeling about those views, we have to cling to them. We have to take our suspicions and our hopes, and we have to make a belief, a strong enough belief that we can feel that we know the truth about something that actually we don't know the truth about. So these are the views that are being discussed here. But again, remember that one way to understand this is not just the various views listed in the kind of a doctrinally approved list of views, but countless manifold views. I think it's useful to think about this in terms of any speculative view, anything that's not evident, anything that you don't know peacefully and confidently, anything that you have to attach to with belief, to cling to in the way we usually speak about it. Now, does the abandoning and relinquishing of these views and come about in a bhikkhu who is attending only to the beginning? So it's kind of assumed here, because Mahachunda is an accomplished practitioner and he's talking to the Buddha, that we don't want to be clinging to our views, that we don't want to be attached to our beliefs to the point that we're clinging to certainty about something which is just not certain. And Mahachunda is asking specifically about a bhikkhu who is attending only to the beginning, and Bhikkhu Bodhi gives us the very helpful gloss of his meditative training. So based on his reading of this phrase in context, he's saying that what's being talked about here is a new bhikkhu, somebody who's just getting started on the path, just starting to practice seriously, understanding the principles, but not yet deeply attained. Can such a bhikkhu, or I suppose a non-bhikkhu for that matter, who has started on the path of practice, abandon and relinquish his or her speculative views, or his or her attachment to speculative views, his or her sense that they are more certain than they really are? And now we get the very important and central answer, very important and central to understanding the rest of the sutta, and indeed to understanding the path in its entirety. Chunda. As to those various views that arise in the world associated either with doctrines of the self or with doctrines about the world, as to speculative views, and you may want to, I might need to read this more than once. The way that Bhikkhu Bodhi phrases it is much more complicated and intricate than what you're going to see in Bhante Sujato. So you can read along, keep an ear on what I'm saying, and we'll go over it twice. I'll just read it through and then we'll go through it phrase by phrase. I'm choosing Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation here because it's precise. It's also quite intricate. Here's what Bhikkhu Bodhi says. The Buddha is saying about this matter. The Buddha says, if the object in relation to which those views arise, views of self and views of the world, in relation to which they underlie, in which they are exercised upon, is seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus: this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself, then the abandoning and relinquishing of those views comes about. So the Buddha is saying, yes, the abandoning and relinquishing of those views can come about in one who is attending only to the beginning, and one who is at the start of the path, just getting started. But let's go through this again and really understand how that is the answer, how that comes to be what the Buddha tells us. Chunda, as to those various views that arise in the world associated either with doctrines of the self or with doctrines about the world, as to these various speculative views, if the object in relation to which the views arise, which they underlie, in which they are exercised upon. Pausing here, what is that object? What is the thing that the views arise in relation to, which they underlie, and which they are exercised upon? Basically, the answer that we get from the commentaries covers every possible answer to this question. As Bhikkhu Bodhi informs us, he's talking about the khandhas here. Each of ourselves as we understand ourselves in our unenlightened state. Your khandhas, my khandhas, the meditating bhikkhu's khandhas. Understanding that the rupa khandha, the body khandha, is also a form khandha. So it's not just the mind and body, it's the mind and experience that we make into ourselves. And this is kind of the key point that shows up in the rest of the sentence. If the object in relation to which views arise, which they underlie, and which they are exercised upon, the khandhas, is seen as it properly is with proper wisdom thus: this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself, is seen as not self, then you can let go of your views. The abandoning and relinquishing of the views, those views comes about. So, seen as it actually is with proper wisdom thus: this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. That's a very, very frequently recurring pericope, a stock phrase that we see throughout the suttas that summarizes the Buddhist teaching of anatta, of not self. The three phrases have come down through the tradition to have very particular meanings. They indicate the three kind of flavors of feeling that constitute the ongoing sense of the not ongoing, the recurring and persistent sense of a stable, perhaps eternal, fixed self, from which lots and lots of dukkha arises for us. And just to mention what those three categories of feeling are: this is not mine refers to the feelings connected with possession, with acquisition, with having something. And this is a really important one to keep in mind, that feelings of possession are feelings of self. When you get that thing that you really want, there's a feeling of, yes, I have it. Or if you lose something that you consider a possession, I have lost it. Oh no. Moving on to this I am not. This phrase, which again recurs countless times in the suttas, refers to feelings of identification. A new feeling comes in, a new emotion comes in. I am excited. It gives us the feeling, I am excited, or I am angry. I am angry. And finally, this is not myself. This refers to, according to the commentaries, the feeling of, the technical term is conceit, but it doesn't just mean like something that you're looking down on. It means judgment, comparison, judging things in relation to ourselves and forming views about how things relate to each other. These are both forms of conceit. Mana is the Pali term. Those three sort of sets or classes or categories of feeling I like to just call them self-feeling. That's what we have that we mistake for a self, and out of which we make a doctrine of self, which ultimately is at the root of speculative doctrines of self. So the Pali term is atta vada, a doctrine of the self, but it refers both to the specific views that we arrive at and to the underlying mechanism or machinery that makes those views. Okay, so I dwelled in this for quite a while, and the reason I did so is that I think that this is the subject of the rest of the sutta. As we'll see, the sutta doesn't tell us exactly that this is the case, but keep in mind that what the title of the sutta is referring to, effacement, may indeed be specifically not the views of the self, the effacement of self. And this might be a good moment also to just pause on this word, saleka, the name of the sutta, which is translated literally as effacement. Ajahn Sujato makes the kind of clever translation choice of self-effacement. We're about to see that this is repeated very often in his translation. To me, that's going a little bit too far, in that the English term self-effacement connotes a kind of putting yourself down, making yourself look unimportant, being sort of showily humble. At least that's the association of the word to me. And that's not what's being gotten at here. This is about the true uprooting of the defilements, yes, but specifically of the defilement of self-view. Effacement means erasing, rubbing away. Okay, so now we get this interesting second section. Bhikkhu Bodhi gives it the subheading, the 8 attainments. It is possible here, Chunda, that quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, some bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. He might think thus, I am abiding in effacement. But it is not these attainments that are called effacement in the Noble One's discipline. These are called pleasant abidings here and now in the Noble One's discipline. We're going to repeat this paragraph now 8 times, one for each of the what are known as the 4 jhanas. I think most of you are familiar with that, but I'll say a few words about the jhanas. And the 4 immaterial attainments, which are sometimes called the higher jhanas, but actually in the suttas are not referred to as jhanas. They're exalted, subtle meditative states that are available to one who has mastered the 4th jhana. The Buddha is saying here something which sounds like it is in tension somewhat with most of the expositions of the jhanas that we find in the suttas. Certainly not with all, and I'll say a few words about that. The Buddha is saying that right samadhi, meditative practice that develops to the point of entering the jhanas is not what is meant by effacement. It's not what is meant by uprooting. And here I'm pointing to my narrower reading of the sutta, self-view. Mastering the jhanas does not get to the very heart of the problem of suffering, which is to say, the defilement. Well, there's all the defilements, but specifically the defilement of self-view, which has to be uprooted. We get this phrase for what these attainments are. That's going to recur again 8 times. Pleasant abidings here and now. They're good things. Mastering the meditative, the 8 meditative attainments is a good thing to do. It's an allowable and wholesome source of, in this translation, pleasantness. I think as Bhante Sujato puts it, bliss in this present life. But they don't take you all the way. Now, in other suttas, it's made very clear that the 8 attainments, that right samadhi, is an integral part of the path, that it doesn't take you to the end of the path, but it brings you right to the doorstep. It prepares the mind for the ultimate realization. And synonymous with this, with the ultimate realization, is effacement. That's what's being talked about in this sutta. I'll have a bit more to say about this, but let's move through this section to make sure we have plenty of time to see not just what effacement is not, but also what it is. And those of you who are particularly interested in the relationship of jhana to the wisdom of effacement, to the wisdom of uprooting the view of self, the doctrine of self, please ask, because we'll have plenty of time to talk about your particular interest in the sutta. We might also want to talk a little more about this phrase, pleasant abidings here and now. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Yeah, we don't get a lot of encouragement or a lot of sort of authorization to take pleasure, to enjoy bliss. But in this sutta, we're being authorized, we're being encouraged. There's a few other suttas where this happens as well. I'm thinking specifically of the Arana Sutta, later in the Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha enjoins us to be one who understands how to define pleasure. And in summary, very brief summary, because we have a lot to cover, the way to define pleasure is to understand the difference between sensual pleasure and the pleasures that arise out of sila and samadhi, out of integrity and right meditation. They're profoundly different in ways that we'll see, though not so clearly in this sutta. Anyway, moving along, I'm not going to read the entirety of each of these 8 paragraphs, but let's make sure we review exactly what's being included here in pleasant abidings here and now in the Noble One's discipline. Okay, it is possible that with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, some bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and singleness of mind, without applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of concentration. This is the standard jhana formula. We're going to get this word for word in a very, very high percentage of suttas. I think it's something like 30% of the suttas in the Majjhima, and a higher percentage in the Digha, and then an entire Samyutta, an entire section of the Samyutta Nikaya, as well as many mentions in the Anguttara. Exactly these words are used to describe the jhanas. And then we get a compressed form of the rest of the paragraph. The bhikkhu might think, thus, I am abiding in effacement. But this is not effacement. These are called pleasant abidings here and now in the Noble One's disciple. It is possible here that with the fading away as well of rapture, some bhikkhu abides in equanimity. And he enters upon and abides. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I missed one. It is possible here that with the fading away as well of rapture, some bhikkhu abides in equanimity. No, I got the right one. And mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure with the body, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which Noble Ones announce, he has a pleasant abiding who has equanimity and is mindful. Interestingly, this is of the 4 jhana descriptions, this one includes a quote of what the Noble Ones say about the jhana. And this is included in all the standard references to the jhanas, but here it has a particular resonance with the conclusion that the Buddha is specifically drawing. The quote of what the noble ones say about the third jhana is, he has a pleasant abiding, who has equanimity, and is mindful. So this general understanding of the third jhana is a kind of reinforcement of what the Buddha is teaching us specifically in this sutta, that the jhanas are wholesome, entirely good, pleasant abidings, here and now. Once you've let go of all of the drama of samsara, all of the drama of being here and now, but not here and now because you're lost in your dramas, your desires and aversions. Yeah, once you learn this discipline of right concentration, you can let go of that, and your here and now abiding can be pleasant. Okay. It is possible here that with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, some bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. Again, this is the standard jhana formula. I'm not going to analyze it during this session. And then we get the full wording, not compressed, of the point here. This bhikkhu might think thus: I am abiding in effacement, but it is not these attainments that are called effacement in the noble one's disciple. These are called pleasant abidings here and now. Okay, so from there we go through the four immaterial attainments and come to the same conclusion about each of them, that these attainments are not what's being spoken about with the term effacement. They're not as sublime and as pleasant as they are. They're not going to uproot that attavada, the doctrine of self. So, what uproots the view of self? And now we get to what makes this sutta so wonderful. We're going to get many, many different looks at what it is that uproots the view of self. Let's read through the first one together. I'm going to read Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. You can follow along and just take in this list of things that the Buddha says are what we can practice to uproot attavada. Now, Chunda, here effacement should be practiced by you. : here's the list. Others will be cruel. We shall not be cruel here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Others will kill living beings. We shall abstain from killing living beings here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Others will take what is not given. We shall abstain from taking what is not given here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Others will be uncelibate. We shall be celibate here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Others will speak falsehood. We shall abstain from false speech here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Well, what is that? We've just seen the 5 precepts. So we can practice the 5 precepts to uproot the root cause of suffering. It's quite beautiful that the very beginning of the path, as it's usually laid out, underlies the end of the path, which is overcoming self, overcoming the view of self. We're going to now dig in to Buddhist doctrine with the rest of this list, and how I understand it is we're going to be seeing how these basic precepts can be refined and pursued more deeply through ongoing continuous practice. To get started, stop being cruel, stop killing human beings. To get refined, stop killing any beings. To get started, just stop lying outright. To refine it, well, others will speak maliciously. We shall abstain from malicious speech here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Others will speak harshly. We shall abstain from harsh speech. Effacement should be practiced thus. Others will gossip. we shall abstain from gossip here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Okay, now we've reviewed the 4 courses of wrong speech: harsh speech, gossip, malicious speech, and of course, outright lying, falsehood. And now we're going to move through many of the missteps that we can make in the course of our ordinary lives, and have them framed for us, reframed by the Buddha for us as ways of practice. Others will be covetous. We shall be uncovetous here. Others will have ill will. We shall be without ill will here. Now we're talking about our intentions. Others will be of wrong view. We shall be of right view here. Oh, before we skip over covetousness and ill will, let's note specifically that those are wrong intentions. And if we are without them, we can practice the right intention. Instead of being covetous, we can have the intention of renunciation. Instead of ill will, we can have the intention of metta, of loving kindness, of wanting the well-being of others. Others will be of wrong view. We shall be of right view. Others will be of wrong intention. We shall be of right intention. And you'll notice there is, in this sense, that maybe you'll pick up from what I just said, some repetition in this list. But each time there's a repetition, we get a little bit of an extra angle on our possibilities for conduct. Others will be of wrong speech. We shall be of right speech. Others will be of wrong action. We shall be of right action. Now we're talking about the Noble Eightfold Path. Others will be of wrong livelihood. We shall be of right livelihood. Others will be of wrong effort. We shall be of right effort. We're looking at the entirety of the path now as a path specifically to effacement. As it's usually taught in the Noble Eightfold Path, this is a path to Nibbana. Effacement, as is emerging, turns out to be a synonym for Nibbana. And this is why I spend so much time talking about self-view at the beginning of our time together here. Others will be of wrong mindfulness, of wrong concentration, and we shall be of right mindfulness, of right concentration. Effacement should be practiced thus. Now we get 2 more steps in the path that we don't usually see. Others will be of wrong knowledge. We shall be of right knowledge here. Others will be of wrong deliverance. We shall be of right deliverance here. So you've probably heard of the Eightfold Path. As it turns out, it's actually the Tenfold Path. In a few suttas, there are 2 more path factors that are given. Right knowledge and right deliverance. These are the fruits that come at the end of the path. They're talked about in many places, in many discussions of Nibbana, of the fruition of the path. But there are a few places where they are creatively and artfully stuck onto the usual formulation of the path. And to me, this is an encouragement not to get stuck on particular formulas or particular classification schemes. The Buddha, in many graceful, beautiful, elegant, and often indirect ways, points us towards not clinging too firmly to any particular formulation. So yeah, we all learn, even memorize the Eightfold Path, and actually there's also a way to look at it as a tenfold path. Okay, moving along, let's make sure to leave plenty of time for questions and comments, which I see are already filling the list here. Others will be of wrong deliverance. Others will be overcome by sloth and torpor. We shall be free from sloth and torpor. Others will be restless. We shall not be restless. Others will be doubters. We will go beyond doubt here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Okay, we've just seen the 3 of the 5 hindrances anyways. Others will be angry. We shall not be angry here. Effacement should be practiced thus. Okay, now we're back to the defilements. Well, hindrances are certainly defilements. And here again, we're seeing a kind of exuberance of teaching insofar as we're kind of mixing together different doctrinal categories, saying just forget about the categories. Let's think about how do we let go of our defilements. Others will be revengeful. We shall not be revengeful. Others will be contemptuous. We shall not be contemptuous. Others will be domineering. We shall not be domineering. Others will be envious, avaricious, fraudulent, deceitful, obstinate, arrogant. We shall not be revengeful, contemptuous, envious, avaricious, fraudulent, deceitful, obstinate, or arrogant. So now we're just taking a look at all of the different flavors of negative states, of the states of woe. Often our reference to these states is limited to greed, hatred, delusion. Well, you can take any of these states and relate it to the actual states that we experience. So envy is not one of the three fires of suffering of greed, hatred, and delusion. But if you think about it, well, it's sort of a blend, isn't it, of a kind of hatred and anger, and mix in some agitation. We can see that our actual experience, our actual way of experiencing skillful and unskillful states is quite well summarized by the sort of classic systematic understandings. But I really quite like that this sutta doesn't stick to the formula. Others will have bad friends. We shall have good friends. Others will be negligent. We shall be diligent. Others faithless. We shall be faithful. Others shameless. We shall be shameful. Others will have no fear of wrongdoing. We will be afraid of wrongdoing. Others will be of little learning. We shall be of great learning here. We're doing our best this morning to attend to this effort at effacement. Others will be lazy. We'll be energetic. Others will be unmindful. We shall be established in mindfulness here. And now we're returning to the heart of the practice. Others will lack wisdom. We shall possess wisdom here. And finally, others will adhere to their own views, hold on to them tenaciously, and relinquish them with difficulty. This is a really, really important one. It's last on the list for emphasis, I would say. We shall not adhere to our own views or hold on to them tenaciously, but shall relinquish them easily. Effacement should be practiced thus. I take this as an absolutely essential core teaching of the Buddha. This is a deeper, richer, more accessible framing of the idea of non-attachment to views, one that we can work with. The Buddha then goes on in the rest of the sutta, which I'm going to summarize very quickly because I do see a bunch of comments here, to give us a number of different perspectives on this list that I just read, and which I encourage you to kind of read in its entirety as you work your way through each of these variants of this list of 44 ways to practice effacement. The Buddha talks about inclination of minds. Chunda, I say that even the inclination of mind towards wholesome states is of great benefit. So what should be said of bodily and verbal acts conforming to such good states? Therefore, and now we get a different phrasing of the same list. Mind should be inclined thus. Others will be cruel. We shall not be cruel here. Mind should be inclined thus. Others will kill living beings. We shall abstain from killing living beings here. And then Bhikkhu Bodhi, I'm not quite sure what happens in Bhante Sujato's version, but Bhikkhu Bodhi just summarizes the rest of the lists. Numbers 3 through 43 and 44. Mind should be inclined thus, ... Right down through the very last one, mind should be inclined thus. Others will adhere to their own views, hold on to them tenaciously, and relinquish them with difficulty. We shall not adhere to our own views or hold on to them tenaciously, but shall relinquish them easily. Okay, I'm just going to read the first one from each of the following lists. We get these beautiful metaphors. Chunda, suppose there were an uneven path and another even path by which to avoid it. And suppose there were an uneven ford and another uneven ford by which to avoid it. A person given to cruelty has non-cruelty by which to avoid it, by which to avoid the uneven ford, by which to avoid the uneven path. A person given to killing living beings has abstention from killing beings, not killing living beings, by which to avoid the uneven path, the uneven ford, and so on for the rest of the list. All the ways to avoid going the wrong way. And now we get a spatial metaphor, the way leading upwards. A person given to cruelty has non-cruelty to lead him upwards. One given to adhering to his own views has relinquishing his views easily or her views easily to lead him or her upwards. Next, we get the way of extinguishing. This word here is pari nibbutto, which also means the way of final nibbana, final letting go, cooling. The person given to cruelty has non-cruelty by which to extinguish cruelty. One given to killing living beings has not killing living beings by which to extinguish killing living beings, by which to extinguish it. And here there's a little bit of a play on words. So, well, it seems a little bit obvious, but one given to killing has the simple resort to not killing in order to get past it, to get over it. But the play on words here is also by which to attain release, by which to attain nibbana. So in conclusion, the Buddha says, so Chunda, the way of effacement has been taught by me, the way of inclining the mind has been taught by me, the way of avoidance has been taught by me, the way of leading upwards has been taught by me, the way of extinguishing has been taught by me. These, I think it was 5 different ways of seeing the same list of 44 ways of effacement. What should be done? Now, the very last paragraph here is also kind of a famous one. It recurs at a number of different places, and it's a wonderful. It's a stock phrase, but I find it quite inspiring. What should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them, that I have done for you, Chunda. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, Chunda. Do not delay, or else you will regret it later. This is our instruction to you. This is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Mahat Chunda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. Okay, we got a lot of questions here. I want to make sure we have time to respond to them. So let me jump right in. I hope you'll go back and read and reread this sutta. I've read this one many times. It's actually quite a favorite. Okay. So Michael says, he spoke of giving up view as philosophical speculation. Speaking of views here in this reference in the sutta, is it fair to see this as well as the giving up of little view we have in everyday life? By this I mean such things as, he dislikes me, he hurt me, he cheated me, she badmouthed me, she stole from me, she cheated me, on and on. Looking at these as views to give up, I move into, just don't know, because I can't know what's inside another's mind. What motivates the behaviors to which I react? Is this a legit view of view as explicated in the sutta? Yeah. I think you're looking at the extended meaning that I think is clear here. What's included in the notion of attawada, of views, is any view that reinforces the sense of self, that reinforces this I am, this is mine, this I am not. Anything that gives you one of those feelings is to be viewed in this way, is to be let go of. So yeah, I think you got it. Gita says, Bhante, it's challenging to attain the jhanas. How can one practice with diligence to attain these jhana states and sustain these states? Yes. Well, diligence is part of it. I would recommend specifically that you take a look into the teachings of Ajahn Sucitto. He's one of the elder teachers, living teachers, still active in the world, in the tradition in which I was trained, the Thai forest tradition. Specifically, he wrote a short book. I think it's mainly a transcription of two of his Dhamma talks that answers this question quite beautiful. The one word that kind of leaps out of your question that I think he addresses quite nicely is the word diligence. Diligence, of course, we often use to refer to something very positive, the positive aspect of effort, right effort. We want to be able to apply ourselves in a steady, committed way. But he also shifts our emphasis towards the critical attitudinal adjustment we need to make to deepen our samadhi. The title of his of the book I just mentioned gets at the attitudinal shift I'm talking about. The title is Samadhi is Pure Enjoyment. If you just Google that phrase along with the word Sucitto, Sucitto, you can find this online. It's widely, I believe I'm sure it's available. So samadhi is pure enjoyment. Points us towards a form of joy, a form of enjoyment, which is pure. The way he starts off the talk is by noticing that, well, when we use the translation concentration, what comes to mind is something that we have to really tackle with diligence. And that really leads very easily to the idea of focusing, getting it done, working hard, digging in. Actually, that's not going to get you to deep samadhi. Your question of how, well, there's a lot of kind of useful tips and a lot of ways to orient yourself towards the jhanic states arising. And I'll encourage you to take a look at this book for some practical guidance. What it boils down to is learning to not try to get something, but simply to enjoy the pure and wholesome, piece, which is available in every moment. The starting point for tipping from the more preparatory meditation into samadhi is your own integrity. It's actually what we're talking about in this sutta. It's the sort of, it's the sense of wholesome satisfaction and peace that arises from living with integrity. That actually is more of the foundation of samadhi than any amount of sitting on the cushions and trying to get something. Why don't I stop there in response to that question, but encourage you to take a look at Bhante Sucitto's, Ajahn Sucitto's Samadhi is Pure Enjoyment. Okay, sorry, I'm looking up at the clock. That must look a little odd. I don't want to lose track of our time because I see some other questions here. Oh no, I guess maybe not. Okay, well, oh yeah, there are. Good morning, Anne. Oh, Emily, good morning. Nice to see you. Emily asks, how to avoid the risk that the formulation others do an unskillful thing, we do a skillful thing, could actually reinforce a sense of separate, even a prideful self? Oh, that's a really good question. This is a characteristic, very, very common pitfall, specifically on the monastic path. It's actually so common that teachers refer to it again and again in their instruction to new monks. It frequently happens that one comes into monastic life and starts practicing with a lot of energy and starts to get the hang of it, starts to learn to live with more integrity than one was living before, starts to take advantage of a life where one's sheltered from all the kind of temptations and distractions of the world. So what happens? The mind doesn't have its usual impactful, if harmful, pleasures coming in. It's continual stimulation. So it starts to search around for some source of stimulation, self-stimulation, and it lands on the strong feelings that arise by judging others. You notice the monk next to you taking more food than you think he or she should take, or you notice somebody not bowing the way you think that they should bow, or forgetting to wear their robe folded in the way it's supposed to be folded. This really is quite a common occurrence. The instruction that we get from the teachers I respect the most is 90% just let it go. Don't worry about how other people are doing. Don't worry about being the teacher. Don't worry about being the example. Just practice for yourself. I would say that simply asking the question is most of the solution. I mean, if you see that this is a danger and you hold it in mind, you really can't go too far wrong. It's a great question, though. I encourage you to keep working with it. 90%, don't even worry about how other people are practicing. Actually, I'm seeing a little problem in my own answer. The other 10% might be this very enjoyment. So yeah, I think I'm going to emphasize the second part of my response to you, which is be aware of that danger and notice the arising of pride or superiority. Watch that, let it go. Okay. Sarah asks, I find this suited to be very poetic and different in style from the ones I've read so far. Yeah, me too. I think that's why I keep coming back to it. Michael says, I will read and reread. Yes, I completely agree. Peter A, thank you, Bhante. Oh, you're welcome. What is classed as evil friends or bad friends, sometimes I see it translated differently, like in the Dhammapada. Should we consider people that don't keep precepts as bad friends? Well, it's important to distinguish here between two possible understandings of, oh, I'm sorry, let me read the second part of your question before I skip to answering. Is it possible to still meet up with people and be friends with them, even though they don't keep precepts, but not associate with them on a certain level? Well, yeah, let me take each of these halves of the question separately. Should we consider people that don't keep precepts as bad friends? Well, let's consider the meaning of bad friends for a minute. In English, it's kind of an ambiguous phrase. It could mean that they are friends who are bad or evil to some degree, as is every unenlightened being. But a little too much for us. That's a different meaning from they are bad friends to us. They are specifically people who don't treat us well, people who don't treat us the way we should be treated, with honesty, integrity, and so forth. So I think I have a different answer for each of those. If someone is a friend who is not living wholly in accordance with the precepts, then I think you've already got it figured out. It is possible. I'm going to change the second half of your question into a statement. It is possible to still meet up with people and be friends with them, but not associate with them on a certain level. Absolutely. In fact, it's probably the skillful course. I don't think the Buddha is encouraging us to drop everyone in our life who doesn't live up to our standards of sila. Many people have weaknesses of character, but also great strengths and gifts and beauties of spirit that we can both benefit and learn from ourselves and respect in terms of the good that they do in the world. So yeah, you want to keep those people in your life, but as you put it very well, I think, only associate with them to a certain level. I wouldn't say on a certain level, but to a certain level. Don't hang your hat on them as individuals, as a full package. You don't want to buy into the parts that are unskillful. But as for the other part, people who are not good for you, for example, if you're in a relationship with somebody who just is pulling you down, isn't respecting you in the way that you need to as a human being, then yeah, you want to change that relationship, hopefully in a way that saves it and helps that person to grow. But if not, yeah, you don't want to stay with that. So slightly different answers for two different meanings of bad friends. Okay. Undone. Would this concept be reflected in physical clothing? I'm sorry if this has been answered. I've joined late. I'm not quite sure which concept you have in mind. Maybe you can ask a follow-up question with that. What do you mean by concept? Would this concept be reflected in physical clothing? Undone, sorry. Used to reading languages I'm not familiar with. Undone, inviting a follow-up. And Liz says, thank you, I was unable to join at the beginning and will rewind. What does wrong deliverance mean? If you spoke of this earlier, please disregard. Oh, that's a great question. Well, I should say first that I don't know what the doctrinally correct answer is. The 9th and 10th steps of the Eightfold Path, it's fun to say that, are not discussed very often in the suttas. There's just a couple of mentions that I'm aware of. They are discussed at length in the Visuddhimagga, the central and near canonical commentary of Buddhaghosa from about 1,000 years after the Buddha's life. That work is really central in Theravada Buddhism. But I haven't studied that part very closely. I know to me, it brings to mind, now that you ask the question and I reflect on it, the idea that you are enlightened when you're not. And there are a couple of suttas that discuss this. Basically, it means, and this is true of wrong throughout the list, throughout the Noble Eightfold Path, so I'm going to extend it to 9 and 10. Wrong intention, wrong view, wrong action, wrong speech, wrong livelihood, wrong mindfulness, wrong effort, wrong samadhi, all are rooted in self-view. So this is actually a very relevant question. So right intention is fundamentally unselfish. Wrong intention is the same kind of thing, but where the fundamental concern is yourself. How do you relate to what you're doing? What do you get out of it? So I think this would be true of wrong deliverance as well. It would be along the lines of, I have attained liberation. Well, you haven't really attained it if you're feeling proud about it and you're feeling kind of exultant and relieved that you've finally gotten this thing that you wanted. I'll leave it there. Okay, Undone follows up. So we have mental pridefulness reflected in how we view others' practices, you said. Does the concept of self-effacement also pertain to the way we present ourselves in society? Okay, I see what you're getting at. Because in today's society, it's difficult not to be flashy if we want some sort of social approval. And we do need that just to get jobs or social connections in the West. Sorry for the long post. It keeps cutting me off. That's okay. It's a great question. The answer is, is going to be the same for a wide range of questions when you're thinking about what would the Buddha say? How do I approach this from a Dhamma perspective? And the answer is, look at your intentions really, really honestly when you're putting on your clothes, in this case, when you're choosing what to wear in the morning. Why do you want to wear that kind of especially sharp, borderline flashy looking outfit to work today? Look at your intentions really closely. Invariably, there's going to be some mix of wholesome and unwholesome, but which one predominates? Are you doing it for ego reasons, or are you doing it to be effective in a way that that doesn't necessarily have the potential negative impact? Always hold on to some sense of restraint. There's no reason to, I can't, it's hard to imagine a wholesome intention that would result in going over the top. That's unrestrained. But you can't go too far wrong if you're being honest with yourself about what your intentions are in presenting yourself one way or the other. Okay, looks like we're running low on time, but I actually don't see any other questions, so that worked well. Thank you all for joining us this morning for Sutta study. I think we better stop there. Feel free to come back tonight if you're available, Eastern Coast time, that is. I know we have people from all time zones here. We'll be hosting our weekly so-called monk chat, which is a kind of open format, question and answer. The community here at Empty Cloud is on retreat this week, and I am attending to our public programs and presentations. So we'll be looking back a little bit at the talks this week, along with I'll be fielding any questions that you might bring. Hope to see you there, and look forward to further Sutta studies with you, and to any of our future meetings in the Empty Cloud community. We'll finish with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wishing you well.